Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the PHNX Rising Show, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I am here in Carson, California at Dignity Health Sports Park. I'm joined by El Jefe, Mr. Edwin Perez. ¿Cómo estás?
I would like to say good. I was enjoying life a little bit on a little Sunday, and I tuned in, excited. After a 6-0 month, I was like, "Here we go, another rising. It looks like should be a good game," and
Yep.
it turned to be the opposite, Ramon.
Yeah, man. Tough loss today. 3-0 victory for LA Galaxy 2. It didn't start off well. First goal came in the second minute or before the second minute, actually, and it got worse from there. So, not really a great time here. It's the second time Rising come into Dignity Health Sports Park and lose 3-0. The last one coming last year in September 29, if I remember correctly, 2021. Again, losing 3-0 to LA Galaxy 2. So it was a rough game from the start. Shout out to Tyler. Let's see his comment here. He says he's drinking now to erase this memory. Alex talking, or you could use some OGs as well. Yeah, of course. Shout out to OGs. But yeah, Edwin, it's just a rough game. Yeah, the thing that I was telling Owen a little bit because he got up to the press box for a quick second was the fact that I thought we were done with this, not trying the hustle. 6 victories in a row. I thought Rising had got it together. They're gonna start playing from the minute the whistle starts, but that didn't happen today. So did those wins cover the fact that Rising are just not playing up to par or not playing the whole 90 minutes?
I think when you're winning, it covers your flaws.
Hmm.
When you're winning, everything is going right in the world. There's nothing wrong with this team.
Yeah.
And it's fair to celebrate, especially because you go 6-0.
Hmm.
You got to celebrate that. But at the same time, you realize that this team is still in work. There's still a lot to improve, and I
Yeah.
mean, this game showed it. I mean, from the second minute, giving up that goal, and after that third goal, there's times, especially last year, where I'm like, okay, this Rising team saw us fight. They can still make this a game. It was never a game. Like
Hmm.
after that second goal, I said this could be a complete wraps. And then you
Yeah.
add the third Darnell King's red card. I mean, not even the Rising Magic of last year, who they can ride a good second half. That was
Hmm.
never going to happen. The
Hmm.
the fight wasn't there, as you mentioned, and there was just so many things went wrong for them today.
In the second minute, Remy Cabral started the goal scoring for LA Galaxy 2. Assist by Johnny Perez. I want to talk about Johnny Perez in a quick second. And then in the 13th minute, 2-0 Cameron Bard scores for LA Galaxy 2 again. Assist from Johnny Perez, and then Jonathan Perez gets on the board on the 43rd minute right before halftime after the Darnell King red card. So that pretty much tells you everything today as far as what was going on for LA Galaxy 2 because Johnny Perez was just creating havoc on the right hand side. I thought Ryan Flood should have been substituted a very, very long time ago, not up till maybe the 75th minute, I believe, when Njai came in. So I don't know what was going on there. Darnell King also was just not playing up to par. You could see his frustration. And Pat, we are going to talk about that red card in a little bit. But yeah, just the defense wasn't playing great. But I was talking to Owen about this, and we both felt that the fact that Calistri, Repetto, and Epps started up top, and Hurst was the midfielder today, which I've seen in spurts throughout the season, but not to start the game, kind of messed up the dynamic there, having only Seijas and Quinn not only having to create the chances, but also having to play a lot defensively and cover a lot of ground. So, what do you make of that lineup, and what do you think of that defense today from Rising?
Before I get into that, I feel like we gotta. You're talking about he had a conversation with the man Owen himself. I feel like we gotta bring him on, especially
Let's
after
bring
a
them
tough
on.
loss, because I know the man has so many opinions.
Yes, sir.
Oh God, I've got a lot of
Oh my
opinions.
God, I hear
Yeah.
him.
You know what? You know what? Actually, if we're gonna do that, I did just come up from chatting to Rick. Let's run that right now. I do actually have the video for you, so let's go ahead and run that right now to
Let's
start.
hear it.
We were awful in the first half. I'm proud of the guys in the second half. I asked them to do a lot more running and a lot more chasing and try to nick a goal. And we created enough opportunities, but we were not clinical. We weren't good in the final third in any way. And they scored a goal 2 minutes into the game on a mishit cross, and then we fell apart. We weren't aggressive. We were letting them have too many easy passes in midfield, and Um, just not a good performance at all. And Darnell lost his composure, and it really cost us. And outside of that, there's not much else to say.
Yeah,
Oof.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oof. Somber mood today, boys. Somber mood is in full display.
Followed it up, right? And I will quote Rick on this. He was asked by the club put the question in of, well, he said about the second half performance was an improvement. Is that, kind of what they're going to base trying to train more like that for over the next week? And Rick's reply to that was, no, we were just crap today. He used that word crap specifically to describe the performance. And he said that if they play like this next weekend, San Antonio are going to kill them. And I don't think that that's inaccurate at all.
Yeah, and I was Owen, I was just asking Edwin about this. What caused the initial mishaps for Rising? Again, you said second minute, obviously they didn't come prepared to play. So what was it, the lineup? Was it just the fact that this is, their third road game and their first road game in a very long time after those initial two at the beginning of the season? So what happened today?
I think it was just kind of a case of they fell behind early and never really managed to pick it up from there. I think the early goal, for whatever reason, just had that kind of an impact on them. And they never really kicked it into top gear, it felt, especially not in that first half, where there was maybe one real chance that was taken when Aidan Quinn forced a save. But, you look at the rest of it, and how long was that ball just in the opposition? Sorry, in the Rising half? It didn't feel as though it was coming through. It didn't feel as though they were creating many chances on goal. And I know you want to bring in now. We talk about the midfield, and I did hear that when I hopped in here right before I hopped onto the actual show about the midfield and your thoughts on that with the team selection in there. I did ask Rick about the team selection. The rationale he gave for that was simply the fact that he doesn't think that Arturo has been doing enough in the midfield.
Wow.
Okay, that's the rationale that was given.
And that's the thing that I noticed in the second half. As soon as Arturo came in, I felt like Rising played more cohesively. So if you take away Arturo, you take away kind of like that link between the midfield and the front three. But then also, I think Rick really, and that's something that's come from the preseason, that he wanted Arturo to kind of take that next step and be able to be that kind of force with defensively as well. So that's tough for me, though. I don't know if that's something I agree with.
The one thing I will say there is that when you're saying about Arturo when he did come on, we can also point out the fact that that's also when Santi came on. And I think between the two of them, you saw a lot of energy, and that really helped. But at the end of the day, it for whatever reason, that first half was poor. It was atrocious. It was one of, if not the worst half of football that I think any of us have seen Phoenix Rising play.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, they deserved to go in at the break losing by 3-0.
Edwin, I don't know if you can put up the comment from Gerardo here. He says, opinion, I'd never agreed on King being our captain. He has clearly proven tonight that with putting his teammates in an unnecessary bind. So let's move on and talk about Darnell King for a little bit. The first two goals came on that side that belonged to King. Obviously, the frustration came after that, and we all saw what happened during that first half where it's, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It looked like targeting. Initially, looking back at the replay, it looked like he missed. He was trying to just kind of shoulder him, but it looked a lot worse because he missed that shoulder kind of bump that he was trying to do. So, Owen, what do you make of this, and what do you make of Gerardo's opinion here?
I think that it's hard to kind of trash him based on this one incident. However, it is an incident that shows a great deal of ill-discipline. There was no need to do that. There was no rationale behind why you go in and make a challenge like that, other than sheer frustration. And the problem is that when you are losing 2-0, which they were at the time, when you are going to act out of sheer frustration, things aren't going to go well for you. And so he goes steaming in, takes this guy out. Now, Rick had some questions. He doesn't like how they came around that decision, even though he agrees it was a red card. I mean, it's hard to disagree with the fact that it was a red card. It was pretty blatant, I think, to all of us. But it's just, in that moment, that was, and it killed the game. It really killed any chance. And I don't think that Rising were in it prior to that, okay? I don't think they were competing prior to that. However, that utterly killed the game, because as soon as he goes off, you don't feel like they've got a path back into this match.
Yeah. Before we continue talking about this, I do want to talk a little bit about OGs. I know Alex mentioned it at the beginning of the show that we're probably going to need some in order to get over tonight's loss. But if you haven't yet, you can go ahead and stop by your local dispensary and grab some amazing scratch-made THC gummies from our friends at OGs. They just announced their new mini OGs, which is a 3 milligram microdose, option for those not wanting to dive right into the regular 10 milligrams. These will be available on May 3rd exclusively at ZenLeaf locations through May 11th. So those are coming up pretty quick. They have amazing flavors like orange creamsicle, tropical, and watermelon. Slow heads up, I have tried some. They're pretty good, especially the pineapple. Not on camera like Owen wants me. But if you're interested in trying the amazingly delicious variety of flavors that OG's Brands has to offer, go to ogsbrands.com. That's OGEEZbrands.com to find an OG's near you. All right, y'all. I know we're kind of like in a bit of a somber mood. I think Kieran here put it on our chat, but yeah, man, like, not a good time over here. And I was just telling you guys that the first time I went to cover Mexico in San Antonio, they lost 3-0, and the first time I come to cover Rising over here in Carson, they lose 3-0 to LA Galaxy. So maybe I should just stay home, right?
Well, before we continue talking about Rising, I think we just got to lighten up the mood a little bit. We got to do our DraftKings King of the Game, right?
Let's
and it's
do it.
tough after a tough game like
Who
this.
is it? Who is it?
It's
I don't even know who
tough
you
to pick
picked.
one. We're going with you just talking about how when you first covered Mexico, they lost 3-0. So this is not maybe a good thing to follow it up with, but the DraftKings King of the Game is to you. Shout out to making the trip. First as a Rising media member. We know Owen is stacking up those numbers, so we can't give it to him for every road trip. So we had to give some love to Ramon, but also a shout out to Owen, who's getting a lot of love for his haircut. So
Hollywood Owen, that's what I'm gonna call him.
Jesus, we got to take small positives, boys. Small positives from today's game. Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Let's hear him. Talking about my haircut.
Yeah, we're gonna prove Kieran wrong and not be full somber tonight. Oh man, see, I think Chris.
You sure we're not going to be full somber? Because I'm.
Go for it.
I feel like we're very much on the path to full somber.
Owen, I gotta ask you. Owen, I'm curious because I was thinking about this covering this team last year, and this is what we talked about during the Las Vegas game. This Rising team always struggled from home, and Rick always said, "No, that's not true. We don't care. That's not us. We still get our points away from home." Yeah, it seemed like it's apparent again this year. It seems like this team, it hasn't performed the best, on the road. Obviously, we just came from a month where they played 6 games at home and all that. I mean, is that something that we're going to expect all year long? And does that just make the first seed that important for Rising? Because Rick always says it's not that important because we can still play at our best away. But I don't know.
I don't know if it's important because of that, but I think it is, I suppose, not necessarily because you'd sit there and say, oh, Rising don't do well away from home. It's the fact that come the end of the season, if someone's finished ahead of you, they're also a very good team. And it comes down to fine margins at that point, of which one of them is the fact that you're going away from home. But it's not so much, I think, the fact that, look, today's game is, or shouldn't be, indicative of what a Rising away game in a playoff match would look like, simply for the fact that you can't really, or you shouldn't have, at the end of the season, a table that has LA Galaxy 2 ahead of Phoenix Rising. And if you do, you've got bigger problems, I think, at that point. Look, tonight's performance was just atrocious, wasn't it? And we can put it down to, is it the away factor? I don't think you can say that for this. I think this was just bad. Look, last season we saw a 3-0 loss here, but that 3-0 scoreline flattered LA Galaxy 2, okay? That one late in the season where one of the goals came, I believe, when Rising was kind of on a counter trying to get something, and the other one came deep into stoppage time, right? That was a loss, but it didn't feel like a 3-0 loss. Today, it felt like Phoenix Rising were completely outclassed and, quite frankly, could have lost by 6 or 7 if LA Galaxy 2 had been able to finish. Now, while you were doing the read earlier, I did actually manage, never say I'm not productive, I did actually manage to get one more video in there.
Roll
So
the
I'm just
clip.
going to introduce this now. Hang on. Just going to introduce it by saying that I asked Rick for this one. What were his words going to be as he goes into the locker room?
Like I told them at halftime, what's the point of me yelling? They know I'm disappointed. They're more disappointed in themselves, and I have to watch again the first 20, 30 minutes and try to understand why we weren't aggressive, why we weren't attacking the ball, why we were so late to close down individuals, and you move on.
I think Coach appreciate that.
He gives me like stern dad vibes. I feel bad. Like, yeah, that's rough, man. Like I know the rising players are going to be disappointed in themselves, but this has been a pattern throughout the season. They don't start off strong. They, besides that Monterey Bay, I don't really can't remember another time where they come out of the gun, just physical, aggressive, ready to play, ready to put their stamp on the game. The first half today, looking at the numbers here, 58% possession for LA Galaxy 2, and that turned to 70% possession in the second half. I know they were a man down, but to me, it's a signal of the hustle and the play and recovering balls that they lose. I saw a couple of times where Marcus Epps lost the ball on the right wing, kind of just put his hands up and that's it. Let Joe Calistri deal with it. That can't happen, man. Like, especially at this level, you gotta go back, you gotta fight. Yeah. And especially with a team that's kind of struggling defensively.
You know what I saw, and I know you're talking there partly about the early stuff, but let's talk about just throughout the second half, the entire game plan from LA Galaxy seemed to be just to break with numbers. And they did, time and time again. Time and time again. What we saw, and this is why I'm really, really surprised it didn't end by, with a much higher margin of victory for LA Galaxy too, is that there were times when they would be on the break and they'd have 4 players running forward and Rising would have 3 or 4 defenders.
Mm-hmm.
It's just bad.
Yeah, Johnny, I was mentioning it earlier. Johnny Perez from LA Galaxy 2. He's under 20 El Tri, Mexico's team. He displayed what he has today. He was involved in the first 2 goals, scored a goal himself, and like you were saying, every time there was a counter, you just kind of, when you were up here with me in the press box, and we were kind of just sighing because we knew we were coming, and unfortunately, that 4, 5, 5th, 6th goal didn't come through, but they could have been 6-0. It could have really been. So it could have been a lot worse. That's what I'm trying to say. But is that really a testament to how Galaxy played in the second half, or how bad Galaxy 2 were? So
I don't know. It's a weird one, and I think that from both sides. I mean, look, let's talk a little bit about the substitutions in the second half and what the aim of them was, I guess. And Rick said it was fundamentally just to try and, flip some people around, get some people rested, being realistic about the position the team was in by like the 75th minute at least. I don't know. Galaxy 2's finishing was poor.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be clear. More than anything else, Galaxy 2's finishing was poor. I can recall a couple of clear-cut chances that Rising had. I can recall more chances than that Galaxy 2 should have put in the back of the net and did not. And that's in the second half alone. So, it's hard. It's hard coming out of this and trying not to just be Mr. Doom and Gloom and all, pure negativity. But the game was genuinely, and I think everyone who's watching us now presumably watched the game, and they know that game was really that bad.
Yeah, it was rough. I think it would have changed a little bit if Repetto would have finished that chance that he had in the first half. If they could have scored that goal, I think it would have kind of gave Rising a little bit more confidence, and you wouldn't see the frustration from the defense. And the fact that Greg Hurst, which we had on the show, and we asked him about this, the fact that defensively he's trying to be a more complete player, he got that turnover, he set up Repetto, and Repetto just, shot the ball out wide. That can't happen, man. Like, Repetto, he hasn't been in the best of form. I think it's rough for Greg Hurst being the only forward/striker in form. Epps is not playing well. Repetto's not in form. Santi's coming off that injury. I felt like he did bring in that fire in the second half, but if you put everything on Hurst, it's not going to work. Yeah.
No, you're entirely correct. It sets up a situation whereby it's easier for the defense to deal with that. Okay. If a guy like Claudio is going to put his chances wide of the net, then you don't have to pay quite as much attention to him. I mean, more broadly as well, the problem with that is that Hurst was probably the player who was playing most deep out of the four of them. In that kind of number 10 role. And that was originally, from what I gathered, that was the plan. It wasn't to play so much of a two up top kind of situation. It was more of a, him playing in that kind of Arturo type role. I mean, to talk to some of the other stuff here as well, we're talking on forwards. Pat Moses in the chat with a comment on Antwi in the 85th. What's the point? Bring him on earlier and see what happens. Well, again, the point from what I gather from Rick is it was rotation at the end of the game. It was the knowledge that the game was done, that they had lost that match, that they had no hope of coming back, and therefore they were going to make a few changes and just play around with it and see what happens. I don't know why it didn't come earlier, but I'd imagine he was probably holding one or two back just in case there were injuries.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to. Well, he's holding one back just in case there were injuries.
I think Rick
I don't
gave
know.
the team like 20 minutes. He gave them around 20, 25 minutes to say, hey, if you can get on the board, you can kind of get something going. You guys can continue. But after that, Quinn for Anguiano, I tweeted it out. I was like, if Anguiano's coming in for one of the forwards or Quinn, then kind of just wrap it up. It's not going to – they're not going to do a lot. Now, as far as Pat's comment here with Antwi, I wanted him a lot earlier, man. Like, you can't give him 5 minutes at the end of this game. This is a perfect game to bring him a lot earlier. Give him 20 minutes.
But again, it's the problem of do you use all 5 subs early doors?
Yeah.
And then risk going down to 9 men.
Mm-hmm.
That's I guess that's the rationale. Someone has to be the last sub on the pitch. In this case, it's Antwi. But
for me, right, and I'm just gonna hop in, is that this front three has not been solved. There's still things that need to be fixed, right? And there's players that are out of form, like Repettos we're speaking, right? And so I think the importance for me is seeing someone like Richmond Antwi get more minutes and see what he can do in that front three, what he can bring different to understand situations moving forward. Anguiano, I understand that he needs to get his minutes too and all that, but I think I am more wanting to learn about the front three than the midfield. So I would prioritize the sub of Antwi before Anguiano, just in that headspace. I get saving the sub for injury. I think that's a smart move, but I would rather to see Richmond Antwi, see what he does. I don't think he's going to garner that starting spot right off the bat. But I say you give him minutes, see what he can do, see what he can bring, and maybe he's the first guy after Greg you put on as Repetto gets back into his form.
But we're talking here about the front three now, while ignoring the fact that Rising conceded 3 goals in the first half. Is the problem up top? Is the problem up top, or is it at the back? I mean, it's
it's a mixed bag, though. I feel like
just gonna do a big sigh.
And shrug your shoulder. We'll let Rick figure it out. Let's take a quick break, guys, and talk about DraftKings. So, as you guys know, the NBA playoffs are in full effect, and that means next level basketball is here. You can get on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA this week. And if you're a new customer, you can bet $5 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets instantly. You win no matter what. Plus, you can place a same game parlay each day with 3 or more legs and get up to $25 back if one leg doesn't hit. So again, if you guys haven't yet, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PHNX. Bet $5 on any NBA team to win their game during the first round of the playoffs and get $150 in free bets instantly. That's promo code PHNX at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. You do have to be 21 and over. Arizona only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. All right, y'all. So let's kind of head into the last part of the show here. But looking forward, San Antonio has been, I wouldn't call them amazing, but they've been playing okay. They beat Monterey Bay.
6 on Monterey Bay.
Can you let me set him up?
6 goals on Monterey
Let me set him
Bay.
up. Let me set him up, Owen. San Antonio beat Monterey Bay by the score of 6-0. And they'll be visiting Rising at Wild Horse Pass next week. So, Owen, Edwin, people in the chat, what does Rick go back to that original lineup that he's been playing with Arturo in the middle, say he has, or Quinn, or like Jedi here, 1689 Jedi said, seems like we have struggled a lot in the midfield since moving Lambert to center back. What's going to happen next week?
You know what? I just want to add in quickly on the San Antonio point as well. And I know I was interrupting you earlier. Yes, they scored 6 goals. I actually saw one of San Antonio's beat writers claiming that he thought they were actually quite wasteful, even in that match. So, so I know it's Monterey Bay, set expectations accordingly, but coming off of this, I'm not feeling good. Look, I think that part of that comes down to, is Sievert ready? Is he available to play? We don't know at this point in time whether he will be ready to play or not. So
now, if he is ready, are you going to throw him in there against San Antonio, which is one of the best teams in the league?
What do you want to do?
Well, yeah, because there's got to be fixes, and for me, I think we were talking about how Lambert in the back was kind of helping the team in that mojo, but I think this defense is, has their flaws, and it's clear. This line needs fixing, even when they were, on that 6-0 run. You push Lambert to that midfield so you can have more defensive help from the midfield, because I think that's what Lambert does so well. And then you pair him with Aiden Quinn, and for me, should either Arturo or CES, and obviously that's going to be the big question. And so you need to start someone there. So if Sievert's ready, we'll see. If Musa, if the James Musa is ready, then obviously that's a question. And then again, Manuel Madrid, I know he, defensively, he's had his issues, but he's been one of the most threatening attackers, weirdly, right? As a defender, he's produced goals and produced his chances, so I mean, he deserves a shout too.
Yeah.
Let's be clear here. If Rising put out the team that they put out today, which they can't anyway, because Darnell King can't play in that match. But imagine they could, and imagine they played much like they played today. They would lose that game to San Antonio by 4 or 5 goals.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Haugley was
to the point.
Not playing
sorry,
because of visa stuff, or what's going on there?
I don't know for certain, but just the reminder on that one, I was about to hop on to, because we got the comments in here. We don't again. I'm not entirely certain, but at the start of the week, Rick did say that they were told on Monday that the final step of Sievert's visa issues was going to take 3 to 8 days, and that was the status on Monday. So it meant he could have been ready for this game. He might not. I'm guessing, based on his lack of inclusion in the 18, that either it hasn't been cleared yet or was cleared very late, and therefore we haven't yet gotten him fully registered. We'll see. We'll see on that, and it is very plausible that he'll be available for next weekend.
Yeah, no, I think everybody's excited to see him. Based on the highlights, I'm excited to see him. I want to see what he has on the pitch, and obviously Darnell not being on that 11 next week, that's gonna, create some shuffling in that lineup. So we'll see what happens. But Edwin, you want to kind of give us your final thoughts on today's game and what's gonna happen next?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Suns play tomorrow, so hopefully they show up to make you feel better, but also, tune in. We're gonna have a lot to discuss this upcoming week. Obviously, there's a lot of questions gonna be asked, a lot of things gonna be said, but at least for where my headspace is at is the same thing that Rising has not peaked. There's still things that they got to figure out. This team is still progressing. They're lucky that they didn't lose 6-0. They got to learn a lot from this, and they got to see how they rebound, because again, the schedule's getting harder. The schedule's just going to get harder, and you're going to have a lot of tough away games. You got to get points. So use this as a learning lesson, and you got to figure out your lineup and who should be out there.
Just to add, now Rising are flying back tonight is the plan. They're hopping on a bus now over to LAX. They'll be flying back tonight. On that kind of a long trip home, you've got to say the players have got some time to think about this performance today, and whether they think that's really up to the standard that's expected of them here at Phoenix Rising, because quite frankly, on the showing that we saw today, they should all be pretty embarrassed.
Yeah, definitely. Tough 2 weeks coming up, San Antonio, and then U.S. Open Cup at Sacramento. These are must-win games. There's no excuse for that. San Antonio is not the same team they faced earlier in the season in April. They played a lot better since then. They've gotten the results, and I know they're looking to get some revenge on Rising. So it doesn't get easier than this. So it's time to regroup and try to get that W next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one, because it is San Antonio, Sacramento away in the Cup, and then you come straight back home and you're playing, admittedly recently, as of recent, struggling, but still a very good team in Tampa Bay Rowdies, and it's going to be a tough stretch. That 3 tough games in a row.
For sure, for sure. All right. Well, we're losing light over here in Carson, so we're gonna call it a night. But we appreciate everybody in the chat. Devin, I do agree with you. I don't know how I feel about Owen's new haircut. Kind of that Hollywood feel. As soon as he got here, he went to the bar. No, I don't like it. So, but yeah, no. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you haven't yet, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We really do appreciate that. You guys can also follow us on Twitter at PHNX__rising.
Double the underscores. Double the somber shows when they play like this, I guess.
Double the
I can't say
taper.
fun tonight. I Like I can't.
He's been researching bars he can go get a drink after the whole time, after the second goal. So, all right, y'all, it's been great. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back on Tuesday. Until then, be well, be safe, and see you later. Take care.